workforce and deliver that business change and culture change that it's going to need for us to become a digital first organisation. We need to work closely together as an exec team in how we do that, particularly workforce and digital. Plans to develop a programme of work of how we ensure that our staff have got the right skills, capability and time to really engage with digital. We're not starting from scratch again. We're already well placed in how we train and implement in solutions across the organisation. We take pride in how we've done that and what we've achieved so far. We need to continue to invest in our digital clinical leads. They're absolutely fundamental to this. And we've also got a digital champions model in place across the organisation where we've got 916 members of staff who are recognised digital champions who want to learn and learn more, and they then pass that information and that learning on to others. Okay, so that covered off the digital inclusion of the staff, but of course our patients, if we're going to go on this journey, our patients, our population, we need to help them help us to get to the destination. The importance of digital inclusion and ensuring that people are not disadvantaged by what we do digitally is going to be absolutely key to this. Our aim is to maximise the opportunity and do what we can, working with partners such as Slice, the local authorities and Digital Communities Wales in that, but we recognise that it won't be for all. Not all will be able to engage digitally with us, and we need to make sure that with the efficiencies we make from digital, we have resource to still support those people in ways that they need to be supported in. But over time, of course, as generations move on, we will reduce that non-digital way of working. Just to quickly touch on national and partnerships. Clearly, we've got an approach in Wales that is to do things together across Wales in a digital sense. This should be the way forward for us. It can bring complexity and delay, as we know, at a national level, and we need to work together with national colleagues to improve on that model, encouraging that there's been a review of the governance model nationally, and there are 16 recommendations that are going to be worked through this year. So we hope, and we need to influence the work around that we'll have a stronger governance model nationally, and we need to have a more effective partnership way of working with DHCW as well. It was great last week that 3 of the independent members, including the chair from DHCW, visited Morriston and took a tour of one of our wards and the ED department to see the good and the bad of what we've got in place at the moment. And there was some good conversation with yourself, Andrew, as well, following on from that. Regionally, we've mentioned Hywel Dda earlier. There's a real opportunity from a digital sense to work together on our capabilities and capacity. We'll be bringing our priorities for 25-26 to the next committee, the next joint committee. So finally, what will it take? It's going to take strong leadership. It's going to take leadership across the organisation. As a health board, as an exec team, we have to drive forward the digital first mantra. And in that, there'll be some tough priorities, decisions to be made. If we're going to go for that electronic patient record and rationalise what we've got, we will have to say no to individual things that come forward that aren't supporting that direction of travel. Investment, we will need to invest digitally moving forward. Yes, there will be need for increased Welsh Government support, but as an organisation as well, inevitably we will need to respond as an organisation on the investment challenge. Therefore, we will have to do benefits realisation extremely well. That will range from opportunities for cash releasing from consumables and reduced administration overheads, for example, but also through to full-scale transformation. How does digital impact fundamental measures such as length of stay, and how do we properly measure that? We need a benefits framework. We need an improved benefits framework for everything, not just digital, that we ensure that what we put in business cases is seen through to performance management, and that we have benefit owners identified throughout that process. So I commend you to support the digital strategy direction of travel going forward. The key things for 25-26 is obviously that we deliver on the INTP priorities that Marie presented earlier, that we focus on the workforce program so that we start to have a proper plan for how we bring our workforce to the levels that we need them to be, and how we address the investment and benefit challenge as we head towards the 26-29 IMTP.
Thank you very much, Matt. So, Sharon, I'm going to ask you around the investment and the increase from 2 to 4.6% that's referenced in the paper, and Sarah on workforce readiness, really, for capacity and capability. But Darren, should I turn to you first?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. I think this has been a while in the organisation, Chair. I think that the pragmatism of let's understand year one and the links, but then there's some further work around resourcing is really welcome, because we need to take the time to understand what those opportunities are. From my perspective, digital is a huge opportunity. It's a huge opportunity to move resources around the organisation, and then your point of a benefits realisation is really well made. We're not great at doing that everywhere, not just digital. But equally, as soon as that resource is released, we should be able to move that and deploy that in different ways. So we need to do that in consideration of the overall financial context of the board. Equally, it's got to enable our ambition to become more and more enabled in the way in which you just described. So I think for me, it's taking the next 12 months, Chair, to work alongside the team in terms of, it's a bit like a strategy. You need to do a lot of things to keep the lights on. You need to do a lot of things which are really exciting and innovative and will generate opportunity for us to recycle the money. We'll have to do it in a balanced way depending on what that opportunity is and the ongoing financial health of the organisation. But I share the ambition. I think there'll be vehicles to do it, and it'll have to be on a case-by-case basis how we work it through. The trajectory in the scheme is a helpful line for us to test the ambition against.
Thank you, Darren. Sarah, workforce implications.
Yes, thank you. Obviously, having heard the staff story this morning, I think we've got to acknowledge this isn't a nice to do, but it's a must do. So thank you for sharing that and bringing that to life for us in the context of the challenge we face. I'll keep it brief, but I want to recognise the connection to our people strategy and some practical things we're already doing, and then look at acknowledgements to the future work that Matt has touched on in terms of what we will need to be doing to get us ready in order to implement this. So as key enablers, workforce and digital, we already have our people strategy, of which people aim number 4 is that we're digitally ready. So we've been, that's based on what our staff have said to us, so that you already have appetite there, Matt, in terms of the desire and need to work in that way. And we've been doing a number of practical things already in terms of helping our staff get used to the way they work. You know, you brought that to life with one of the situations that we've done and the systems we've already done, and I know that your team have worked a lot in terms of embedding that. Equally, from a workforce perspective, we've driven digital solutions to manage performance and data, so we now have a number of dashboards. We are encouraging the way we manage our staff to be focused in a digital way. We've also created our digital learning platform, which Matt's team and I are working on in terms of how we ensure any learning and development that we have arising out of these programmes can be on that Brilliant Basics platforms, which we've shared with the board already, for 24/7 access to help them learn, grow and develop. So a platform where we're able to show the basics in terms of no matter what time of day, how do I help myself do this? Looking forward, obviously staff readiness and training I've covered, but the transformation piece, this for me is we consider how we live within our means, and that organisation redesign piece, these for me are 2 connected enablers. So our new workforce director, Tina Ricketts, will be leading a behaviour change approach to how we and the organisation redesign piece, and transformation in terms of the digital space and how we take our workforce with us will be absolutely critical to that.
Thank you both for that helpful additional information there. Any comments or questions on this transformation?
A bit of naivety, I suppose, again, really. The electronic patient record, obviously pivotal in terms of digital maturity and the benefits that brings. I thought it was a national programme. It was going to be, the same system was going to be implemented nationally. But you're speaking about having an EPR of our own, particularly in relation to ED. How do those 2 marry up?
Okay, so there's a lot going on right now with national conversations, local pressure. There is the plan to take forward a case for, they call it an electronic health record rather than an electronic patient record, but there's a grey area of what you call right? So nationally, there's a case being made for an electronic health record for Wales. The intention is that that's with the minister by September this year. Some skeptics as far as whether that's actually achievable by September, but you know, we will play our part in that and keep a close eye on that. I guess with the pressures that we have in ED and the unscheduled care model, where we've got ED consultants who stand up in summits that we've had, and have said it's very difficult to work effectively in the department without a better solution, and the number of systems that we do have then supporting other elements like GP out of hours, etc. There are about 5 not very performant systems that are used in that front door setting that don't talk to each other. So it's a lot of improvements to be made, and it's whether we can take a case forward that drives pace into what's happening nationally, but like we've done with the electronic prescribing and medicines administration program, where we went ahead of the other organisations and provided all the learning, and now the others are following suit. It's whether there's an opportunity for that. So there's a lot to play out, and we will.
Put you on the front foot.
Yeah, I guess not putting all our eggs in one basket as well.
Yeah.
I've said this several times, we've had to change vocabulary around digital and data and research and innovation. I mean, research and innovation is not pure clinical or medical research. In terms of innovation, I think we have a wonderful opportunity coming up with a joint with our board. However, I think rather than digital being the afterthought, we have to get people to switch their mindset to say, whenever we're undertaking anything, what is the long-term advantage of the digitization or digital input within that particular matter that we're discussing? And I don't think necessarily our conversations and narratives put digital front end. So until we get that mindset shift, and until I can get Darren to pinch sort of 0.25 off this bit and 0.25 off that bit to get us up to the 4% overall, would be great.
I'm sure he's actively listening. And Louise.
Pat mentioned there's the national patient electronic patient record. To what extent is DHCW involved and progressing this, and how much is DHCW actually a drag on it and can get on it?
So DHCW clearly are very much involved in the debate nationally in the direction of travel. We shouldn't think of an electronic patient record and all that's needed as one system, one supplier that's going to come in and deliver something for the whole of Wales. We have to separate out the data layer that we need, because technology will move on. We will get an excellent EPR across the organisation, across Wales, but at some point we'll move on to the next solution, etc. It's important that we protect our data and have our data for Wales in the national data resource that Welsh Government have invested in DHCW to deliver. So DHCW for me are absolutely focusing on some of the right things, getting that data layer right. And then above that is what we get a bit technical, I'm afraid, is we call the enterprise architecture layer that has all the business rules, the standardized business rules that we need for all of the business that we have across NHS. Then we can invite strategic partners, suppliers to work with us on that model. So it could be that Betsy have a different front-end electronic patient record to maybe the M4 corridor, but because we're all working to the standards that have been defined by the DHCW model that we all contribute to, then you will still be able to share information as patient care move from one organisation to another. It may surface in a different front end from a clinician's perspective, hence why when I say M4 corridor, James, you might want to comment on Kath, that as our clinicians move from organisation to organisation, that same feel, that same front end system is probably, important across the M4, whereas maybe Betsy may be able to use a different solution as long as we're all working to the same standards. Because of course, whilst there's a wealth of suppliers, strategic partners out there, they've all got their limitations as well in terms of the scale and the effort that they can provide to us at any one time. So maybe for there to be one solution for the whole of Wales might not be the right thing in that sense.
Thank you. We draw this to a close now by thanking Matt and everybody involved in the development and the design of the strategy. Long time getting to the board, but it's here, and we're asked to support the strategic direction as Matt has set out there. We're asked to consider the aspirations of it. We want to support the aspirations, wouldn't we? And obviously to support the priorities for 25-26. We did say earlier that we need to find a device around the digital maternity system, and I leave that with you to take away. But on the basis of the discussions we've had, the meeting that we've done, we're happy to support the recommendations. What I suggest we do as well is invite Simon Jones and Helen Thomas, the Chair and Chief Executive of the DHCW, to come to a board development session to hear more about how they're here to help us. Thank you all. Thank you very much. Thank you. And thank you very much again. You're very welcome. Don't run out. Thanks for having us. Lovely. It's been a pleasure to have you. So, Chris, we're moving on now then to the pathology report. And of course, we can take that as anything else that members have read. And we have Neil Miles with us. Welcome, Neil. So, as Neil gets heavily involved in the development of this work. So, Chris, over to you.
So, so Neil is the Regional Programme Director. Thank you, Jan. And so is here to support your questions. I will go through it quite quickly. I'm not going to repeat what's in the paper. That's self-explanatory. I just wanted to give a brief introduction. Pathology is an essential clinical support service. We couldn't function without it. And it is a service that's at the forefront of the evolution of medicine with scientific advances, digital advances, genomics, changing the understanding of medicine and bringing great opportunity. But also that brings great pressure and on services to develop. We have challenges in terms of facilities, equipment and staff, and the direction of travel across the UK is on greater consolidation, regional solutions, and that's where we've been focused. We've agreed in Swansea and Howell to work regionally, and that was driven by a national direction, and particularly in cell path histology, but also across laboratory medicine, and microbiology is provided by Public Health Wales, but in our building. So they're also part of some of the project that's been done. So in 2021, it was agreed to develop a regional model, and the model of work that was agreed was an operational delivery network, and a transitional MOU was approved by boards in May 2024. We're also supporting regional mortuary through an MOU as well as part of this project. So the agreement was to come back to the board in March for the next steps. And the ambition at that point was the pathology services would be hosted within Swansea Bay, commissioned by both health boards. And there were two elements to the programme, which is a capital build around a centre for excellence and the development of the organisational delivery network. The programme team that's been leading this, led by Neil, was linked to the capital programme and is now largely gone. So we don't have it, apart from me, we've got it in at the moment. And but also the OBC within the last few months from Welsh Government, the capital was not approved. So we've had to reconsider the programme because of that. We know that we're on, there's been lots of metaphors to describe it, a burning platform in terms of our estate and our workforce. And so the recommendations here are asking us to commit to the next part of what we're going to do. I know Steve Spill has been involved in some discussions on this as well, so he may want to come in at this point. Darren, in terms of the capital, and Neil. But I think the recommendations are there, the details are in the paper. I'd rather leave time for questions.
Yeah, thank you. And how long board is taking the same paper this time? Yeah. And it's also on the agenda for the Regional Joint Committee on the 7th of May. Steve, do you want to add in terms of the leadership role that Neil Wooding and I have given you and your counterpart, Ellen Marks?
Yes, indeed. Well, so it's a little bit frustrating, to be honest. There is a regular programme for the meeting, which in the two occasions that it was due to meet since Eleanor and I got involved, it has been cancelled because of inability to get quorum. So it's on a Friday afternoon, which is not the best time to have a meeting, and people just don't turn up. And so it's frustrating. When this paper was first drafted, Neil and I and Ellen had a conversation about it. It was more or less asking the board to approve just another year of not really going anywhere. So we tightened it up, and Jan, the other Neil, tightened it up even further. So we are now looking for a solution to be presented by the middle of the year, so September time. And we just need some pace in the whole process. And that's what Eleanor and I are looking to achieve.
So I think we're not looking for options to come forward, the development of options to come forward by September. We're looking for the options that we can make a decision on, really, because as Steve has said, this has been on the stocks for so long now. I know the context changed, but really we have to see movement, because what's happening now in terms of the environment in which services are being provided simply unsafe. So I know they want to come in there.
Yeah, thank you. And I would agree with that. I know it's really difficult. I know the teams have really been working hard, and because we are not going to get a big bang capital solution, we need to look at different ways of doing it. I just wanted to reflect on the Ministerial Advisory Group conversation, and I assume it was the same conversation in how this is. You touched on this, Grace. This is critical in terms of service delivery, and it's really incumbent on us to make sure we get a solution and that we can shore up the services and find a way forward. There's strong commitment to work together, so we're building on that foundation. And what we need to do is collectively support the programme to make sure that it can do the work that it needs to do and come up with the options, so that we're able to consider recommendations, John, about how we secure a regional service moving forward. And we will need to include wider partners. So for me, shared services in terms of what they're thinking about in terms of trams, and the conversation about a South West Wales trams, which I can't remember what it stands for, but in terms of their regionalisation of medicines production, and some of the facilities that could lend themselves to a joint conversation. So we need to accelerate those conversations, and they might be able to help us with some of the work as well, which I think would be really helpful. So yeah, completely agree, John. And I think if we can tweak that recommendation, so it's less about receiving an update and more about receiving the options.
Rena, you'd like to come in?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I mean, I agree with Steve. Obviously, it is disappointing, but we do need to put some pace into developing a real plan for this. And one of the concerns I mentioned at Performance of Finance this week was the fact that it seems to me it's full of risks. And yet it's not on our Health Board risk register at the moment. I know we're reviewing that because we had that discussion earlier, but I do feel, given the risks in this, which is inevitable, and the impact those risks will have on some of the services if it went down, I really do feel very strongly that we need to have that considered and put on the register. Thank you.
Thank you, Rena. I think that's a really important point, and we will add that to the actions from the board. So shall I widen it out for others to come in? Nuria.
I think the last point is really important, which was why the observation around capital and the risks split in them both, which I think will cover it. But I think it is a really important observation.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I've got Darren, then Jean.
So just to inform the board, I think this might be one of those areas for creative finance. So we've followed up a further conversation as recommended by an individual from the Ministerial Advisory Group visit. That's on somebody else. So we have just to assure board members we are pursuing some things in the creative space. Clearly, when we've got options, we'll bring those back and they'll test them with government. But we are looking to do perhaps something a little different in this arena. There's different models out there.
Yes, thank you, Darren. Jean, do come in.
I couldn't quite hear all Darren said then, and forgive me if this is a naive question, but have we explored
private enterprise coming in on it.
That's,
I think that's
that's-
suggested.
Sorry, Jean.
I will say previously in the past, that wasn't an option within Wales. I think it is becoming more now. So I think when we started this journey, our options were narrower than they are now. So that's why part of it is right to go back and because then now there will be different options. And there has to be because there's no
The
capital.
Ministry of Advisory Group is going to use this as an example where creative finance solutions need to come to the fore. Really.
And in England, that they're common models. So, you know, the person we spoke to did that. I think there are two elements to the programme. So there was the programme board, which was the capital programme board, which hasn't met because we were waiting for an answer for the capital. The operational delivery network has been the one board that's been difficult to get to, and that was one was dependent on the other. The funding was for the capital build, but we realised very early that a regional solution with how that was managed was in, and so that's the bit where we need to put far more effort now in terms of, you know, finance and workforce and some of the nitty gritty of that. Even if we are, you know, if you are using creative solutions as well, there are some criticalities. And in terms of the risk, I would say the risks to Swansea Bay are different to the risks to Howells are in terms of where their workforce is, in terms of where their state is. But actually, there's also a combined risk of the region as well. So I think we need to look at it probably in both of those, through both of those lenses.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it's potentially a really exciting development, and particularly to demonstrate the advantages of using digital technology to deliver services differently and truly transforming the way things are done, you know, and getting benefits from doing that. So it would be a great flagship, I think, and because of innovative finance as well. This could also extend to digital solutions.
Yeah, that's a great point. Just to assure you, we are developing a regional laboratory information management system. So that'll be integrated across exactly the same front end. All the systems working together, so staff can move between laboratories in the region with the same equipment. More importantly, we can move samples. So without an additional laboratory capacity trajectory that we had, we should be able, when that goes live, to move samples between the region, which we haven't been able to do before. And I think also both organisations are investing in digital cellular pathology, which will remove our storage requirements and our work remotely. And also we're finding on our tertiary pathways for surgical services, that means that Howth and Swansea teams are working together virtually to speed up that pathway, picking up what Matt highlighted. So it's quite exciting.
So to conclude this then, so we've considered the implications. The landscape has changed. You know, there is no capital and the OBC did not secure approval. So therefore we have to accept the need to review the type of resource available, and that gives us the opportunity to look at creative finance solutions there. We need to approve the ongoing governance architecture whilst we are steering this through to conclusion. We are going to assess the risk level, and we'll do it both for ourselves and we'll flag it up with the RJC, and then we'll add it to the risk register. But we are looking to receive the actual options by September to enable us to make a decision about where we go forward at pace, really, given the levels of frustration people have signalled, given the length of time it's taken. Okay? Thank you. Thank you very much, and it's good to see you.
Thank you, Chair.
So let's move then to part 4 and our in-year delivery section. And Pat, would you like to take us through the key issues report from Finance?
Quite a lot of these obviously been covered off in part of the commentary on the 25-26 plan, but just to highlight that PFC has been very focused over, well, quite a considerable time really, on what it sees as key barriers in terms of efficient and effective use of resources. So these are kind of cross-cutting areas that we keep a very careful watch on. So staff unavailability being a key one. Obviously the main reporter of that is into workforce, but it's also coming into PFC, and we'll be keeping an eye on that. Clinically optimised patients, again, you've asked for a report to come back on the first quarter of the year about progress in that area. Obviously, there's a lot going on there, which is very heartening. And then we've received a report this week about CHC commissioning. What we would like to see coming back in the first quarter on that is really the implementation plan. It's got timelines and resources, etc., on it to really take that piece of work forward. I mean, Naressa did outline the difficulties, particularly when you're looking at more budgets, etc. Regional working, it's complex and it needs working through carefully. But again, we've asked for a report to come back on that. So we are keeping a very close eye on those three, and a real interest really on what we can do regionally. There's real opportunities, I think, working regionally in terms of efficiency, effectiveness, and looking at some of the kind of failure and more global services really.
And thank you, Pat. On that last point, the RJC on the 7th of May will take a proposed work programme for 25-26, and we'll make sure that every regional opportunity is set out. And I'd be very much glad to say and support that. Any issues, questions? Darren, do you want to add anything?
I think lots been covered. I think just perhaps to another CHC point, I think just like to re-emphasise how important that is for us. It's we talk a lot about a pay bill. CHC is 100 million of our total spend. And there's a huge opportunity there, A, to make things better for patients, but B, across a partnership to have collective better use of the resource available. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that and then see more pace that can bring to us in terms of benefits realisation.
Thank you. And thanks again, Pat, you and the committee members for the due diligence that you apply and the rigour with which you discharge your role. And we know we're going to continue to ask a lot of you as we move into 25-26. Thank you. Darren, month 11 then.
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me now, Jean? I'm going to lean forward. Because my throat's a bit better. I'll sit next to you next time. So I was going to do turn page on this, recognising time, and we have had a huge amount of scrutiny and opportunity to share them to 11 position across the organisation. If I can take us to page 5 of the report, which just sets out the shape of the financial performance across the year, and to highlight the board to be underspent by £700,000 in month 11. That's £900,000 better than movement from the month before, just 200,000 over, which brings us to a tiny bit over 47 million deficit report at the end of month 11. And board members will know that we are on a delivery trajectory, 43.7 million, which is our do not exceed target this year. If we can do better, we will. The page above on the report and on page 4 just shows you the things we are looking to land to achieve the 43.6. And as I sit here today, I can't tell you with certainty, but I can tell you that I've got all the bits and pieces broadly lined up to get us to that point. I have presented in a little more detail that there's a range here where we could be a couple of million better or worse, but actually where I'm trying to land is in the middle of the range. That's always helpful. It's a lot of the time you're going to stretch to the optimistic end, so that gives me a bit more confidence that 43.7, 43.6 is in our sights. And the rest of the report just draws in on some of the areas of working capital and savings. If I just touch on savings, 59 million aspiration this year. We're approaching 51 in terms of delivery, which is remarkable. Not all of that is recurrent. And approaching 39 to 40 is recurrent. We just tested it. Clearly, lots of the testing that was done in underlying deficit work for the plan, which we discussed earlier, which I'm not going to. From a capital perspective, this links to the risk discussion earlier. We now have the opportunity to balance the capital resource limits for the year, and we've received 13.9 million more money in the last 4 months of the year by being able to bid very effectively for slippage nationally. And we've used that across medical equipment and a lot of the digital landscape to take risk into next year's plan. So it's been really helpful to allow us to draw it forward. And what we do have, particularly in capital, is a really strong risk-assessed pipeline process. So when we get opportunities like this, we know where we're going, we know what's the next most important thing to do, and we can get the procurement done. My capital team will be in this weekend working to make sure everything arrives in time for us to be able to get them, and grateful to them for the work they do to give this time of the year always. From a cash balance perspective, it's set up. We've had the strategic cash support. We have sufficient cash in the books. We have paid everybody this March. And we are on target to carry the appropriate balance across the year end as well. Risks set out, we've touched on those. The recommendations are there.
4 days left. Oh, any comments or questions for Darren? Yes, as in just a significant amount of work at the end of the day now. I think this last week to help us land 44.7 and we really should underestimate. Are we happy to accept the recommendations as sent? Thank you very much, Darren. Please convey our grateful thanks to you and all the team who will be working so hard now.
It's all about the team. Thank you, Chair.
So we move then to a new report we're bringing in, as we said, escalation on oversight. The design is under development and you'll see it progress into 25-26. But Craig, would you like to take us through today's report, please?
Yes, Chair. I don't intend to go through the detail as obviously I've taken as read, but obviously we've covered a lot of the issues already today. So just to reinforce the fact that from a targeted intervention perspective, we've been de-escalating CAMS and planned care. We remain on target to clear all our 104-week waits by the end of March. And we're down to the last 31, all with appointments booked as of today. So that's be a significant achievement if we deliver that. So
They all booked. Great.
they're all booked. They're all booked.
Great. First we take them in.
We're marking them, yes. So each and every. But clearly we still have challenges in other areas, most notably around urgent and emergency care, therefore remain escalated state there, as well as hospital-acquired infections. We've already discussed earlier on some measures that we're taking in relation to urgent and emergency care. And whilst we've not made the progress that we want to around the hospital-acquired infections, you will see generally there is a trajectory of improvement around a number of the organisms. We've had obviously just discussions around maternity and neonate, and I've touched on where we are from a CAMS perspective. So I won't go into any more detail on that, Chair, but I'll take any questions. I'll try best to answer them best I can.
Thank you, Craig. And I know you want some comments on this report as we do that. So thank you. So comments, questions? Jim?
I really like the report. I think it gives us better oversight and a clear view. One of the things I'm still concerned about it, though, is the endoscopy performance.
Yeah.
We seem to be talking about this. So we're still at 38%, was it, or 38.7%?
Yes. Yeah, I think as I've reported in Performance and Finance Committee, we're still on the expected trajectory for endoscopy, and our plan is to clear by March of 2026. So we are on, although that figure is, obviously significantly lower than it needs to be to get the 80% target. In terms of the plan trajectory we set out for ourselves this year, we are on target to meet that trajectory. The plans going forward are founded on a change in the workforce, so medical, non-medical endoscopists, and they are going through a training period currently. So as they finish that gives us more capacity. Our issue isn't around physical capacity for endoscopy. We've got plenty of that. We do need the workforce to actually deliver. So currently we're still reliant on insourcing to close some of that gap. But as we go through next year, I'm less reliant on insourcing in terms of our substantive staff coming on board.
So is everyone at the same point in their training plan?
No, it's now some will have started at different points. So.
Thanks.
Thanks. It was I like the layout of this, but it does mean that the figures that are outliers are more obvious. So my question's around endoscopy as well. What happens to the patients who are waiting? I mean, is it a constantly churning figure because presumably people are referred in? But what happens to them?
Document.
Sorry,
Search.
without in control. That's the way.
No.
In control. Yeah.
So-
What happens to the patient?
So we clearly we prioritise the urgent suspected cancers and the urgent patients that come into the system. So so for urgent suspected cancer, we would look to see those individuals within 2 weeks. Generally, ideally around 2 weeks, probably around 3 or 4 weeks that we see those patients. Then we'll deal with the urgent patients, and then we get into the backlog. So for those patients that are coming in that are urgent on the urgent suspected cancer pathway, we will prioritise those individuals. All referrals are triaged as they come in, and therefore they're assessed in terms of their clinical risk that's associated with them. But yes, obviously we've got patients waiting far longer than ideally would.
So those patients who are waiting the longest, presumably have the least clinical need, but the longer they wait, presumably the more it affects their condition. And I just wonder how long are the long waits?
Possibly, but sometimes actually the conditions resolve, and therefore we actually have to. That's why we're continually validating those waiting lists to ensure that those patients are either still symptomatic or not, as the case may be.
And what's the communication with those patients who are waiting longer than they would have expected?
So as part of the validation process, that's the contact that we have that we go out to patients. So that's done on a regular basis.
Helena, we'll bring you in a minute, but I think Darren might want to respond to this point.
I do, yes, please. So Deb was here, she'd say this. It's been a huge amount of analysis and understanding of the service undertaken in the last 12 months. It's really clear what the capacity is, where it is. And we've also been really clear that if there is more planned care resource available next year, we can recover this more quickly. We know exactly what we're doing and how we're doing it, what the trajectory is. There is a recovery trajectory to 8 weeks, but it's longer because of the resource framework we've got within our plan. More resource would be able to come, we could accelerate this to our partners. So, and when we get there, there's actually a sustainable model that we can see. It's just that the quicker we can condense it, the better, and we'll keep knocking on the doors for them.
Well, I think we can make a connection there with the report on cancer services as well. Thank you. Helen, would you like to come in now? Thank you for waiting.
Thank you. I can see that the hospital have done a lot of work, but with that said, 100% waiting less than 104 weeks. That's still 2 years. People are waiting, and they could be in pain or whatever. And I'm not saying there hasn't been a lot of work done. It's how you're communicating where they are and what you've put in place to help them while they are waiting, and for that to be communicated with them.
Thank you, Helen. That's a number of points you've made today around communication. We'll make sure to follow them up in totality. But Craig, on this particular one, keeping in contact with people on that country forward.
So just as I suppose putting it in context, and that doesn't make the wait any better for the patients in Swansea Bay, but actually we're best placed in Wales in terms of treating patients on an RTT pathway. In terms of communication, yes, there's regular communication as part of the validation process, but also there's specific programs as well, particularly around the patients waiting for orthopedics, around prehabilitation, to ensure that those patients are optimized so that when they actually have their surgery, they're best placed then for recovery. So that's focused on exercise and nutrition as well.
We don't have that as extensively in other areas currently, but I think that's somewhere that we want to go as an organisation if we had money available to actually do that.
And Helen, the Cabinet Secretary is making an announcement on Monday, 7, on his priorities for 25-26. So he may give further signals there in respect of what the requirements are for plan care for coming year. So we hope we should know something very soon, I think, Helen, in terms of what government expectations will be.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, John. Just to add to that, not delay the conversation too much. We are really clear that we need to keep our foot on the gas with this, because again, what quite often happens, you get bounced back in the first quarter, similar conversation to the money. So we are really clear, and because we've got agreements where we're commissioning from within our core, we know what we need to do in terms of the productivity and efficiency and how we get more from the core. But where we commission externally, either insourcing or we commission externally, we've got those agreements in place. We know where we need to go at in relation to those. Some of those things we can claw back at the end of the year if there wasn't consolidation around the funding. But just to give assurance from a board point of view, and particularly picking up your point, Helen, our expectation is that we'll continue to put the foot on the floor in terms of going into Q1, so we don't lose and have that bounce back.
So Craig, thank you very much for that. I think members welcome the new format and look forward to that developing. And so we've considered the update that you've given us, and thank everybody very much for all the significant work that's going on. We'll obviously be keeping a close eye on endoscopy and the opportunities that might come to improve in 25-26. And we look forward to you telling us on Tuesday that all the 31 are in and operated on and sorted. But please thank everyone who's involved in this, because it is an up to it and I'm getting to and fast. Thank you, Jonathan. Steve, shall we turn to the key issues from quality and safety?
Sure, yeah. So the first meeting, the one you got papers for, was back in January, so already a little bit out of date. But you can see the alerts that we've got there. Morriston with the service group that came to give us their highlight report. And obviously, despite huge efforts being made there, there's still quality and safety concerns around the ED, which we talked about this morning. Healthcare acquired infections, where especially for C. difficile, we're an outlier, risk of falls, etc. So that is again an alert to the board. We also had a report on clinically optimized patients, as PFC did. Again, a lot of work. The integrated discharge hub seems to be well planned, and people are working very hard at it. There's a question about the funding, but the number remains stubbornly high, sort of north of 200 or so. And I think about half of them are probably due to internal health board processes. I would say to the nurses, they need to be brutal. If somebody is clinically optimized, they've got to go home. They can't sit there and regale people with their war stories for the next 5 days, which is what he was doing. Anyway, it's a sample of one, but it's 100% of one. So you know, what statisticians would make of that. Health and safety, we've seen it's a 20 on the risk register. Mark Parsons, he's got 9 people in his health and safety department. He thinks he needs 30, and he thinks the health and safety executive would also think the same thing. I know we're recruiting some more, but there's still going to be a shortfall there. We believe, a community diabetes service in Swansea Bay. It's going to be the biggest cost to the health service, if it already isn't. And we referred that to the Population Health Committee, because we want a population health-led approach to that. And pressure, I mean, it's a health board priority. It's getting a bit better, but there are still concerns. So that's another alert. I'll just go to the meeting that we had this week, just a couple of days ago. So it was the turn of mental health and learning disabilities service group to come to us. And we wanted to alert the board to the deficiency in the medical workforce, which is about 19%, which is extremely high. And obviously the physical environments in which they operate, which we touched upon in committee this morning. We also we had a presentation on dental, and two alerts from dental. The specialist service that vulnerable patients are given at the Prince of Wales Hospital. We still haven't got our sessions back, so those people are still waiting. And we are urgently looking at an alternative, but it still hasn't happened. And that's back to November. That issue has been going on. And there's a new acronym for everybody to understand, the DAP, Dental Access Portal, which is something the Welsh Government asked for. So they want to see what the real extent of the unmet demand in Wales for dental services is. We set our DAP up just a couple of weeks ago, and there are 1,700 patients already on it, but there'll be more coming on. I think Cardiff and Vale have got something like 20,000 on this. We haven't got the funding, because the dental budget is fixed. We haven't got the funding to treat all these people. But when Welsh Government see the size of the issue, maybe funding will be improved. End of life care, the presenter says we're getting better, but it's still not a core consideration across the health board. She doesn't want it to go into business as usual yet. And to be honest, more people in Swansea die where they don't want to, i.e. in a hospital, than where they would like to, which is in their care home or in their action home. And we need to get better on that. There's quite a lot of alerts. Sorry, I just have a bit of breath. The right place, right treatment. What is it? It's the police. It's the police issue. It's work in progress. They've introduced now their third and fourth element of that project, which is now getting serious, because they will not, except under special circumstances, transport. And it's the police that they have a lot of vehicles, which we don't, and they have the ability to detain, which we don't. There's a lot of conversations going on between the health board and the police at every level, but that is still something that we should be concerned about. And finally, we had the same Embrace presentation that we all had this morning. And I said to Catherine, who gave us the presentation, that I would alert the board to the fact that she needs 10 computerized antenatal CTG systems at a cost of £15,000, for which she hasn't got funding, but she would like it. And Darren's just about to write down 15,000, because he's got, you know, that's the end of my alerts.
There's a number of alerts there. Thank you. So I think all the ones relating to mental health and early disabilities we will pick up as part of the transformation programme, all those for this environment, etc. Craig, if you think about this question of dental services for people who are really vulnerable, this has been on the stocks for a while now. Have we got an update on that?
Yeah, I can do an update. So our provision of special care dentistry, just for Swansea Bay patients, but for Howell Bar and for some Cwmtâr patients, is actually provided out to Princess Wales Hospital. You'll recall that they had a problem with their roof, and as a consequence, the theatres that we were utilising was actually had to be redesignated. We've been promised over the last few months that actually the situation was going to be resolved, and with the delivery of additional Vanguard units over the various sites, that we would have the theatre back and running by April. We've now had correspondence from the Director of Strategy to Marie to suggest that they won't be in a position to give us back the theatre until August. So clearly that raises significant concerns for us for this vulnerable group. What we're doing at the moment, we're looking at what the potential alternatives are, but we've got children and adults in the mixture. So whilst we might be able to take the adults into Neath Port Talbot and treat them there, children are more problematic. The difficulty is it's not just about theatre capacity, it's the environment in which you actually manage these children this group. So particularly around recovery, so you can't really put them into a recovery area where we've got other individuals. So the reason why the facility in POW was utilised because it was a specialist eye theatre which had its own recovery. So it is a real problem for us. We are having patients turn up as emergency and being probably inappropriately managed in Morriston in a difficult area. So on Marie's turn from leave, I did pick this up. We do need to escalate this to our colleagues in Cwmtawr to try and support us in finding a solution for both children and adults. But so it is becoming a very urgent issue.
That's the plan then.
So at the moment, we're looking at, and these put Albert as an interim option for adults, but as Craig says, we have got an alternate, and that hasn't been concluded yet. That's just being tested by ops colleagues. And as Craig said, we have already now had an example of a special needs individual coming into Morriston with a dental abscess and having to be restrained. You know, so it is a difficult situation. So I will be formally writing to Cwmtawr to ask if there are options to expedite the solution, or review it again, whilst we look at alternatives. Yeah,
Thank you. And if the committee can keep oversight of that, Chair, I'll assist Jean now to make sure that we keep on this until we have a resolution.
Do you want me to pick up on the DAP as well? Yes, so the dental access portal, as Steve said, was interesting. This is causing the problem not only for us as a health board, but it's across Wales. The plan is that as patients go on to the dental access portal, we then allocate those patients to practices. There's a reluctance from practices around that because obviously they rely on new patients in terms of their income, and if patients don't turn up, obviously they're not going to get the money. And where they've got their own cohort of patients, both historic, etc., so they'd rather manage their own cohort. This all ties up, and it's very complicated into the dental contract. So there are ongoing discussions with BDA, LDC, etc., around the contract, and then we've been negotiations going into next year. But I envisage we are going to have some challenges as an organisation and across Wales, particularly for emergency access for patients. So it's probably a subject that you probably want to get more details on, Chair, as this situation develops. But I think dentistry per se is going to be a challenge going into 25-26.
Yeah, and I think it might be, perhaps we could start with that in terms of the board taking a look at primary care. So we will think about that for the board programme for 25-26. Thank you. Rena, shall I ask you to come in?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to ask Steve, because I'm not on quality and safety anymore, a question on the community diabetes, because my understanding was that we did have that service in place and that there was quite a lot of work going on in the clusters on community-led diabetes in terms of people who are pre-diabetic as well as those who are, if you're right, already diagnosed and are living with it. So I'm a bit surprised to hear that there isn't one, if you see what I mean. So perhaps you could clarify where we are.
Yeah, well, and I welcome the contribution from Craig as well. But we got the impression, although there is work going on in the clusters, we got the impression that this was all a bit piecemeal and that there wasn't really a health board community approach to it that there should be. And that's why we referred it to the Quality and Safety Committee. We wanted to alert the board. So some work, but not enough.
Is it a separate point?
No, it's on the diabetes.
On the right. So come in first then.
On the diabetes point, I mean, it was actually worrying. We noticed that we are an UK outlier on amputations, and there is a real value for money on patient harm case here. And one of the issues that we highlighted was around the pace of transformation in this agenda. So I think it's an area for us where we would like further assurances on the work that's happening.
And we can look to see what is in the INTP.
So we have flagged it as a priority from a pathways perspective. I think we've got 4 pathways that we are focusing on as a priority for transformation, of which diabetes is one.
So Craig, do you want to just, I'm going
Yes.
to conclude this item.
Yeah, okay.
then.
So I think we've got a lot of positive work going on in terms of the diabetes prevention program that we have in place, which is good. But in terms of the sort of the 8 quality indicators in terms of the service that's been delivered in primary care, we are falling short, and that was raised with Welsh Government and NHS exec colleagues in our last IPQT meeting. So there is a specific piece of work that we're going to be undertaking from a primary community perspective, have a focus on the delivery of diabetic care in practices. So yes, it's an area that we need to focus on and improve.
So can we also have a position paper?
Yeah.
So just so the whole board, we can send out of meeting, so the whole board understands where exactly we are and what the plan is in 25. So I think we should take cancer services report now and then move to items 6.3 and 6.4 before coming back to 5.1, because we have Denise Stafford, Ken Sutton, Raj and Co. With us. Is that okay? So we're going to do 4.5 now and then move to 6.3. So Craig, over to you again.
Okay, all right. So obviously, particularly to report as read, board had asked for a deep dive into cancer service, including the All Wales, the Audit Wales report. So you'll see from the appendices that the majority of the actions set out in the in response to the Audit Wales report are either closed or made positive progress in relation to them. As the chair mentioned earlier on, Welsh Government have also given a response to this report. It doesn't necessarily impact on our action plan, but it does impact in terms of expectations, I think, going into 2025, 26. Some of the things that just to highlight from the All Wales report is that they're going to have to revise quality statement. They're going to establish a National Cancer Leadership Board. They're going to have a focus on component weights, which are the various elements of the pathway, which you'll see from the report we already focus on anyway. There's going to be focus on tobacco usage, health weight. They're encouraging more regional working, and to facilitate that, they'll want digital solutions available to enable waiting lists to be shared. And there's also a specific requirement in there for employment of radiologists from the Imaging Academy. So just to give some context in terms of maybe some of the things we'll be asked to focus on next year. In terms of performance, disappointingly, obviously, our performance in January dropped. We've been maintaining a positive direct trajectory of 60+%, which we have to do across all specialty. It's a collective number. It's not for each individual. Part of the issue during January was the fact that we had a number of deferrals from December. So probably 16% of the 260 patients that were treated in the month had actually deferred their treatment prior to Christmas. Now, whilst on reflection, if we look back at the January of last year, we saw the same pattern obviously it's very difficult in terms of estimating what those deferrals would be. The other factor, obviously, in terms of December was the fact that obviously we stepped down some of the service around the Christmas week. Just on the deferral points, we have raised this issue with Welsh Government colleagues, and it's a point that's been actually raised with by the health boards. So they're setting up a clinical referenced group to actually look at the point at deferrals, because currently, unless somebody's deferred for 60 days, which is almost the entirety of the pathway, then you can't actually put what we call a stop clock in, where it's very different from a deferral to treatment perspective. On a positive note, we're expecting recovery in February in terms of performance. We do meet with Welsh Government and NHS Exec on a monthly basis. They are content that we're moving in the right direction, that we've got a good understanding of the issues that we're facing. We continue obviously to focus on the front end of the pathway to make sure the patients get in a timely manner. You'll see that there's been a significant reduction in our backlog because we've had a focus particularly on some of the problems that we've had around skin, in particular dermatology. And we were informed in the meeting this week that actually we've got the lowest backlog in Wales. So that's a positive step in terms of going forward. There's still issues around diagnostics. CellPath is a real pinch point for us as an organisation, where we've put an accelerated diagnostic pathway in around colorectal. You'll see that performance there is far better than in general. We don't have the resource to do that in every area, but obviously CellPath, as Christine alluded to, it is an area of concern, and there are lots of things that have been done in respect of that. So moving forward, in terms of moving to get to the 80% target, our focus needs now to be, once we keep that eye on the front end of the pathway, but also look at the point of first definitive treatment from decision to treat, because I think that's where the most significant gains are for us now. So we've got some issues around, as you'll see, we've now reporting in detail for chemotherapy, radiotherapy and surgery. We've got some issues around chemotherapy. The business case for the additional 2 chairs has been approved and is in next year's position. So that will give us that additional resource to support that, because there's a lot more adjuvant treatments that go on these days as well, which rely on chemotherapy first before any other intervention. We need to increase our robotic capacity for prostate. We're on a positive trajectory there. I think we're down now to 4-week waits, which was when we were around about 12 weeks, since we've taken on the service ourselves rather than that being provided from Cardiff. And we need additional capacity around colorectal surgery. We're looking at how we balance that with the list provided for other surgical specialties, and also balancing that with our routine capacity as well. So
thank you, Craig. That's a really helpful walk through the whole of our cancer services agenda. We wanted to bring it at the year end now, so everybody has this assessment of where exactly we are against all the different services as we move into 25-26, with the priorities in the plan and the request that are going to government for additional funding. So that's the purpose of that. Keith, did you want to come in?
It's right to ask a question about the report. Yes, please.
Yeah.
I mean, there are lots of positives there, and you've set them out very clearly. I was looking at the cancer performance percentage treated within 62 days, and we're asked to take assurance from the steps that have been taken. There's a couple that are quite a long way back. gynae, 11%, and hematological is 40-something percent, which is quite a long way back in the queue. Can you give some assurance about how those are?
So gynecology is a particular is a particular issue, and you may be aware of all the background around that. We are working with colleagues in Cardiff and Vale to look at whether there are potential pan South Wales solutions to particularly the specialist gynecology, the gynae-oncology element, and also but Cardiff and Vale have their own challenges at the moment as well. We're also undertaking some work with Howell Bar to look at what the opportunities are as well around gynecology, because there are a number of patients actually who don't need that higher level gynecological input. It can be done by others. So that's some of the strands of work. And there's an advert got out for a new clinical lead, and we know we've got interest in that to enhance the recruitment, because we've got some gaps in terms of sickness at the moment. In terms of haematology, that's the difficulties around haematology are generally around the diagnostic element, because a lot of those patients actually get referred to what is called a lymphoma panel. And it can take a long time actually to get the results back from the lymphoma panel, because of the need to undertake either immunocytochemical or immunohistochemical investigations before we get the results back. So the target is now currently 75 and will be 80%, and that allowance is in there because there are some pathways where I think it's acknowledged you'll never get to that threshold, and there is a balance overall. Hopefully that explains things.
Thanks. I found it disappointing to read about the delay in updating the CANISC system, and wonder what effect that has on efficiency and delivery, because it's obviously delayed again, having been delayed a couple of years.
So it's actually due to go live next week.
So is this just?
That's it, yeah. So there has been delays, but now it is now due to go live next week. I'm not saying this. It's not been without its problems in terms of introducing a new system. So all of our MDTs are now moved over to CANISC, but there are some operational issues that are delayed, and screening and colposcopy is due to move over next week. So there's been some positive movements since the report.
And what will that deliver?
So CANISC is the cancer information system. So it's the vehicle for communicating across the health board and health boards information in relation to the patients and the patient pathway. So it's a sort of cancer EPR.
Right, so more efficient than the old one.
Well, the other one was not. Matt, you tell me that the one was sort of past its sell-by date, so to speak. So we've had to bring in a new system.
Yeah,
essentially,
it's pretty much like for like as the last, but the technology had to be replaced. It was a cyber risk and well overdue.
Okay, I'm going to close it there because we've still got a lot of the agenda to get through. And I said this is giving us the assessment of position now at the end of 24-25. Going to suggest that the board keeps cancer services on our full agenda, given the challenges that we face and the particular issues that we have, and that perhaps we could start in 25-26 applying a population health lens to access to cancer services in some of our key tumour sites as one way in which we start, both from an equality, diversity, inclusion perspective, but also just being absolutely certain the board understands fully all the challenges around cancer services. And Craig, we can take partial assurance, I think, from the improvement plans, given the significant challenges that we still have. Is that okay? And then we can accept the rest of the recommendations, I think. And we look forward to seeing how the Welsh Government responds to the auditor's report impact on us in 2020. So we'll move now then, and Croeso nôl, welcome back. So Kathy Raj and Joy, thank you very much, and you're coming back in to talk to us on item 6.3, Gold Command. And we'll also, I think, have Denise Chaffer and Ken Sutton either listening into this or their report will follow on. And I know we're going to stay for that, the three of you as well. So very warm welcome, Croeso nôl.
Thank you, Chair. Afternoon all. So the purpose of the report is to set out the progress discussed as part of the Gold Command arrangements, which has been established for scrutiny and assurance of the improvement within maternity and neonatal services. I'm not going to go through the whole paper in detail. I'm just going to pick out the salient points. Just to remind board members that in December 2023, the Health Board's maternity and neonatal services were placed by Welsh Government into enhanced monitoring. This was following an unannounced visit by HIW in September 2023. And the Gold Command structure was in place led by myself as the SRO. There has been several areas of focus, but I'm just going to pick out a few. One of the actions from the enhanced monitoring was the establishment of a maternity dashboard, and this will come in line from the 1st of April 2025, and this will be contributing to the quarterly reports to the Quality and Safety Committee from May onwards. We are also focusing, the team is completely focusing with regards to the enhanced monitoring to see how we could actually de-escalate the service. And so that's actually been the prime focus so far. With regards to the regulatory side, HIW and HEIW, all actions are actually being complete, and we are expecting a scheduled visit from HEIW next week. I would like to also focus with regards to the incidents. When the process started in August 2024, we had 230. Would like to remind board members, we also have got about 130 reported every month on. And despite that, the team has actually been able to successfully close things down, and currently the position is at 80. This doesn't mean just closing it down. The team is actually looking into it, making sure that the learning is coming through, and if improvements are needed, it's actually been undertaken. The Gold Command meeting did discuss the Health Board's outline status on Embrace report for 2023. This has gone to the Quality and Safety Committee, and this will be coming back to the board in May as part of the deep dive. We'd also like to ask members to note that the fact that there were 2 Health Board risks placed at 16, they've been brought down to 12, and they've been actually off the Health Board risk register. So the paper is there for acknowledgement and to be assured with regards to the improvements that's been made, and also the fact that we will be report and the fact that we will put it back to the board on a regular basis. Thank you, Chair.
So Joy, Kathy, anything that you want to add?
Just to add really, in terms of we get the privilege of coming and reporting on the work teams who have been undertaking this work, and they have made some incredible progress in delivering the actions that were outstanding, and we all should be very proud of the efforts they've made and an improvement to the service.
We would certainly want to send our warmest congratulations and thanks back to all the staff, because it is a significant achievement now to close this all off for both HIW and HEIW. So remarkable, and please send our sincere respects to everyone. Raj.
Can I just add that the fact that the Kathy happened to actually achieve the 15K for the CTG as part of the charitable funds, and also with regards to the bereavement group, that the fact that the pull down bed is also being sorted out. So I just wanted to give the assurance. That is no, I should start as part of that conversation.
Thank you very much. Great progress. You know, sort of, we know we're on an improvement journey, yes, but this is a significant milestone in terms of getting to the end and being able to close these recommendations. So are we able to take the recommendations as set out there? Report, Dr. Bow, and I know the three of you are going to stay now with us. So, Croeso nôl i'r bwrdd, Denise and Ken. So, welcome back to the board, Denise and Ken. Are you there?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Yes, we are. Lovely to have you with us again. We're really looking forward to the updates that you've given us. We've read through your paper, as we always do, but we're very happy to take whatever commentary you want to give to us now. And Kathy, Sujoy and Raj are staying to listen to this item. Over to you.
So thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much for inviting us back this afternoon. Sorry we're not there in person. I have to say it's not always that easy to hear, but I hope that you can hear me. So I'll try and speak up. So if anyone who doesn't know who I am, so I'm Denise Chaffra, I'm the Chair of the Oversight Panel for the Review Maternity and Neonatal Services. As you've got the paper, we take the paper as read, just a few highlights really to kind of just talk to, and you may have questions on. So we are still working on this side of the summer publication. At the moment, we're on track. There are some risks associated with that we discussed last time. Predominantly, we need to make sure that all the reviews are completed. And we've got full coverage around the engagement and the feedback part of that review. But we're working on that at the moment. And if that does need to move, we will let you know at the end of April that we'll make a final decision on the publication date. The report highlights the work that we've been doing. I'll leave Ken to cover off in a minute the work they've been doing with family engagement. That's been progressing well, good outreach, and he'll be able to give you a little bit more detail about that. The clinical reviews are progressing well. They're around 3/4 of the way through the reviews. We also, as you may recall from the last meeting, have added in the review of the ITU cases. They are progressing. They are quite complex because because of the intensity of the care, there's an awful lot of records for the teams to review, but they're progressing well at the moment. We are still have the self-referral triage midwife in role and continues to receive referrals, so that's still open at the moment. And the other part of the review is the governance, risk and leadership part. You've had your controls report a few months ago. Building on that, the work is as in the paper, specifically around some of the staff engagement and a need to just hear more really from the frontline midwives, in particularly the band 5s and 6s. And Kathy, as you're here listening, I think anything we can do to make sure that we do hear a representative sample of all of the services would be really appreciated. I think that's really the key points from me. If I just hand over to Ken, because I think he would like to say a bit more around the family engagement.
Thank you very much, Denise, and thanks for the opportunity again. The point is a lot of activity around family engagement in the week since we were last with you. A particular focus of that has been speaking with harder to reach groups in the Swansea area, and particularly around diverse communities. And we had a particularly important group meeting last Thursday at the Sketty Mosque, which I think is a particular breakthrough, if I could put it like that, for us in terms of connecting with women there who haven't previously spoken with the review. And I think what we are aiming to do through this work is to make sure that those voices are heard both through our review, but also as a platform for the board going forward, so that you are better placed to connect with these communities in the Swansea area than you might otherwise have been. And that's going well. I would just commend, if I may, the work of T. Ellis in support of us there, because the nature of the meetings that we're having now clearly requires the presence of a counselling service, and we're already seeing the benefit of having that. So I wanted to acknowledge and thank the board for making that facility available. We have just to note going forward, we've got significant meetings coming up on the 11th and 12th of April with the Chinese communities in Swansea and with a wider range of the mosques there. So that's a highlight to be aware of for between now and Easter.
thank you both, and it's really encouraging the breadth of engagement you're having with different family and communities across Swansea Bay, and really the recommendations you make that will help us build on those and build that into our own Family Voices partnership as well. So I'll open it up and ask if there are any questions or comments. Just starting, Denise, by saying we've had a number of discussions this morning around Embrace, the publication, its understanding, its analysis, particularly in the public domain. And you and I have had many conversations around, how do you actually help members of the public understand and appreciate what Embrace is actually saying. And I know that you've talked about recommendations that go wider than Swansea Bay in respect of the publication, use of data, and in discussions with Welsh Government as well. Would you like to tell us something more of that?
Yes, so one of the key parts of this review will be an assessment of Safety Now. And I think obviously key to that is the data from the Embrace report. And I heard Kathy make reference to the dashboard, and we are going to be particularly interested in a range of indicators which kind of help in terms of assurance of safety. But also I think key to that is narrative and being able to explain. And also the Embrace reports are incredibly helpful, I think, in terms of what's expected with the reviews that are undertaken, the family involvement. And those are some of the conversations we've been having with the clinical leadership team and the maternity and neonatal teams, is being able, I think, to evidence the family voice within that, their contributions to investigations, the response to harm, and the understanding. I think it is complex to understand the numbers, because obviously for any family, any baby loss is a tragedy. And so what we need to do is make sure that every single one of those has a full, a comprehensive investigation along with the Embrace standards, which includes family involvement. So those are the types of conversations that we've been having, and how we can, with our team, and we've got members on the oversight panel, one in particular, who's been working on the work that came out of the East Kent review on the reading of the signals. So what does good assurance look like in this space? So that for us is going to be a key part of this report. And what we really want is, and I think I heard Raj mention something coming to the May board, something that's a bit more of a deep dive that gives those explanations, will give not only assurance to the board, but also assurance to the population that you're serving.
Thank you, Denise. That's really helpful. Hey, please come in.
One idea that's just occurred to me is there's a lot of discussion and debate in the papers at the moment about Welsh diversity and embracing communication across the diverse communities that we have. There must be a lot of learning we can take from this in terms of how you've managed that communication and what you saw as the pitfalls and maybe the way forward for us in terms of communicating with those diverse communities. So I know it sits outside of the absolute remit of what you're dealing with, but there's so much learning that we can take away, I'm sure, from that.
Ask Ken to come in on that, and then I'm sure Joe would like to comment. Ken.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think it's a learning for us, frankly, as we go through the review as well. I think there's a shared ambition to become more both kind of better connected and more culturally aware, if I could use that expression. Just as an example of that, one which we've talked about, Denise, from last week, I discovered that in clumsily talking about the Chinese community in Swansea, I was actually using the wrong phraseology. And the Chinese Association themselves in Swansea don't really recognise the term Chinese. And it's the term they recognise is Huaren, which includes people who are not actually, never been to China and don't look to China as their identity. So I think the two ways in which I think we can help through the review are that I think we're able to ensure that some of these voices which might not otherwise have been captured are available through the review, but also that we're getting really good help from people, community leaders who are facilitating our contacts. And each of them are pledging to work with you beyond the review to make sure that these diverse points about diversity and reaching communities are carried through thereafter.
Joe?
Yeah, I was just going to reflect, you know, Ken and the other members of the review team who are involved on the engagements that meet with myself and colleagues from different teams within the health board every fortnight to review what we're doing, don't we? And we look at what's happening and what's working, what's not. We connect with local facilities and individuals that we're aware of, and clearly Ken and Co are optimizing that. So it's very much been a partnership approach, and our diverse outreach workers that we have that are employed through the Council of Voluntary Services, but the work for us have been very much a supportive part of that. So it is about learning. It is about not just about maternity services, but learning around other mechanisms we can use for other things as well. So I think it's been a really mutual benefit to all of us, really.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Any other questions, comments for Ken or Denise? Well, Joe from Burial Next, thank you very much again, and we will take assurance from the report and the discussions we've had, but perhaps you'd like to stay with us for a couple of minutes, because I'm going to turn to Abby, because we are at a point where I think we can put something on our website as a health board in terms of where we are. So I'm going to ask Abby to take us through that. So hope you can stay and listen to that.
Indeed.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Denise and Ken. That was really helpful to understand where we are in terms of the process. But Ken, particularly that bit about the reach, the number of voices that we are hearing and able to listen to, I think is really helpful. And I think you spoke last time about the breadth and depth at which you are undertaking that piece of work. And I think that will be really helpful moving forward. And to thank Raj, Kathy and Sujoy, because it is really good to see the progress that's being made, as you described, in relation to closing down outstanding issues following the HIW reports, but also to feedback on the conversations we're having with Welsh Government and amongst ourselves through the enhanced monitoring and the increased focus that we've got on the services. What I wanted to reflect on is recognition that we do know, and you've touched upon this, that not every woman or their family has the best experience, and on behalf of the board we need to acknowledge that and to apologise to those women and their families when their experience hasn't been as we wanted it to have been for them, and it should have been for them. So we know that out of the 3,000 plus births a year that we support, many women will have a really positive experience, and that's really good, and we see that in our feedback. In our friends and family survey for February, we had 97 survey feedback, and the figure in terms of good and very good experience was 91%. So in terms of that being one channel through which we're getting feedback from patients, that's really positive. But it's not the case for everyone, as we know, and that we know from the review of concerns and other feedback that we get, both through the channels that you're using, but also the mechanisms we've got in place. That many women and families don't have such a good experience, and particularly areas around communication and timeliness of intervention and treatment and clinical assessment. And I think that chimes with one of the things that you've been feeding back as part of that process. Again, the concerns that we have seen reflect that, and reflect that we've got more work to do in terms of ensuring really good communication with women and their families, particularly as they travel through their pathway of care with us. And helping them understand where they are in the pathway, and how we can ensure timely intervention from them. You know, I'm saying stuff that we already know, that childbirth is not risk-free. Our commitment as an organisation and the teams on the ground every day is a commitment to ensuring that services are as safe as they can be every day, every shift. But we can't eliminate all risk, and therefore we need to ensure that we are able to respond to situations where they're rapidly changing situations, Something can go from very calm, very slow, to very quick and very urgent, as clinicians will know and colleagues will know very quickly. So we need to ensure that we are able to meet those women's needs when the time is right for them. We are very aware, and we touched upon this earlier on in our agenda, around the specialist nature of the services that we provide as a tertiary centre and a level 3 neonatal service. So we understand and we acknowledge that means that we'll have expected mums coming to us in a planned way, and also in an emergency in an unplanned way from across the region. And indeed, as part of facilitated transfer through the neonatal network, again, sometimes planned, but sometimes not planned, where we might need to respond very quickly to a transfer across the region if there isn't a neonatal cot available, if that's required in another part. And I'm just thinking about example I'm aware of personally, where a mum from Cardiff was transferred at 35 weeks because they needed a neonatal cot and there wasn't one available in their local centre. So we know that happens. And we know that every day the clinical teams need to assess the level of acuity of what they've got in front and what's coming in. And they need to make decisions about priorities against all of the risks and the issues that they see in front of them. The dashboard's going to be really helpful in terms of managing that day in, day out, and the information that you're already collecting to make those choices and decisions is really robust and getting stronger. And Denise, thank you. Your feedback about how we can strengthen that is also really important, so that we can ensure that the clinical teams are making the right decisions for our patients. We also know that on very rare occasions harm occurs, and sadly in a very small number of cases the outcome really is not what we would want for families and mums and babies. And I think, Denise, you've just touched on this. We've got more to do in relation to supporting women and families when harm occurs. So thank you for highlighting that. And I think it's something that we're aware of and the team have talked about and shared with us as part of our learning journey. We know that is an extraordinarily difficult time for families. And I think your point about we need to support them right the way through that journey. And of course, we need to support the staff because it's also traumatic for staff too. And we talked about that earlier on. And we need to make sure that we're following the right process to do that, to do the proper investigations, to get the peer review, and that we enable staff to feel safe to speak out when harm has happened, and that we can learn from the harm and feed that back into our clinical practice. So I just wanted the board to kind of recognise and reflect on the fact that we're on a journey of improvement. As I said, we don't always get it right, and our sincere apologies for women who have not had a good experience and the outcome hasn't been what we want it to be. But we are committed. Our values are about caring for each other, working together and continuously improving, and that's what we're committed to do as we continue our improvement journey. The thing that I take real heart is that women are prepared to speak up and tell us through a number of different mechanisms about what it is like. Each woman is unique. Those of us who've been through it, our experience will all be completely different. And what we know about it going in, what we feel about it, our experience, it's a very frightening time for many women, and how we support and listen to those really important feedback communication they give us at the time and afterwards is really important. So yes, it's the data, the qualitative and quantitative, but it's also listening with curiosity and compassion in terms of what people are feeding back to us. And I know that we are going to hear more about some poor experiences and some things that will be difficult to hear. I don't know if Helen's still on the call, but we know that Schleiss has been doing a piece of work that's going to feed into your review. And I know that although we haven't seen that report yet, but we anticipate that there will be some hard things for us to hear in that report. But it's important that we hear those things, we learn and we reflect on what women and their families are telling us as part of our journey to continue to improve and to do everything we can every day to provide safe services for our women and families. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thanks again, Denise and Ken. We'd like to invite you back to our May board, if you'd be kind enough to come.
Thank you, of course.
Thank you. Yes, we will. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Welcome, Dr. Mariana and my family.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
So we're going to have a 10-minute comfort and tea break now, and then we're going to plow on to the end of the agenda. Can we get going? Last section. So, person Noretta, welcome back again. We're on to the last section shortly of our agenda on governance. But before we resume, I just have to clarify something. Steve did make a comment earlier about nurses needing to be brutal with patients who wouldn't leave. And clearly that's not what Steve meant to say. What Steve meant to say was that, you know, home is best for people. And really it's about helping patients to appreciate the fact that they would be often. So I think that's what he meant.
Yeah, it was an overstatement in order to make the point.
But we clarify that, and we, you know, we do not condone brutality. So please relay that.
I took it in the spirit I thought he'd intended, Chair.
It does demonstrate that there, you know, there is at least one person sort of listening or sort of listening somehow. Anyway, thank you. We clarified that. So Rena, we return then to the key issues from Workforce and OD Committee, please.
Okay, thank you, Chair. There is one alert here, which was in relation to the sort of negative effects on staff well-being and sickness rates that the current regime that we were adopting because of the financial and operational pressures in relation to the sort of ban, in inverted commas, on agency staff. And this concern was obviously impacting particularly on staff within mental health and learning disabilities who attended the committee to have a bit of a deep dive into the sickness regime and the problems that they were having in terms of managing attendance. So that was the one alert. Then in terms of assurance, we took assurance on a number of areas, again, focusing on managing attendance and sickness management. We particularly looked at support services, which has unfortunately one of the highest levels of sickness within the organisation. But we were assured that a lot of action was being taken. And obviously, we went through in detail the action plan that they have developed in this respect. And we obviously will be monitoring this as we go forward. Particularly, we looked at the issues around speaking up safely, and you will see from the report that we asked for more information in relation to how that speaking up safely framework is being embedded across the organisation and how it interacts and interfaces with the effectiveness of the Guardian service. So again, there's going to be some more work on those. We were assured in terms of the appraisal and revalidation process for physicians, and that good progress was being made on that. On the theatre performance, again, another area within our remit that is obviously got, unfortunately, high sickness absence. And again, an action plan was being developed, but the feeling was that we needed something more granular, and they are going to be coming back with this detail as it goes forward. And then lastly, I just wanted to draw members' attention to the advising section, which particularly had seen an increase in grievances, which I think we need to bear in mind, and how, if you like, why that was happening, and in particular, why the informal resolution processes were not being utilised in the first instance. And going forward then, in terms of the actions that we are asking for, is the development of a more comprehensive action plan across the whole organisation in terms of managing attendance. And that would include both reactive and proactive approaches to this whole agenda. Because whilst we're looking at and deep diving on the areas where there is this, I feel there needs to be, and I think the committee endorsed this, that there should be a more comprehensive look at this as a whole across the whole organisation. And I think that's probably what I'd want to say. Thank you. But if anybody has anything else from the committee, I'm happy to let them say their piece.
Thank you, Rena. We'll come back to the alert in a moment as well. But Sarah, do you want to add anything generally from the committee's work before we do?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Rena. So obviously focus on sickness, and one of our people aims within our people strategy are that our staff for our staff to be engaged, motivated, healthy, and that's been a very strategic approach for us in the committee. And picking up on the last point that Rena has made in terms of more proactive, preventative, and as well as reactive sickness absence management, I'm due to take a more detailed action plan to the Recovery and Sustainability Board, which addresses that, and it will go back to the April Ward Committee for consideration. So to pick up an acknowledgement of that and how we will utilise our business partnering team in a different way, but to equally give assurance that deep dives are going on across the organisation, and sickness summits are in place now across each of the service groups around this. That allows us not only to pick up the application of sickness absence and managing and supporting that, but equally in terms of the connection of the wellbeing point that Rena has raised around the alert. It's really important for us to be balancing, and hence the people aim commitment is about our staff being engaged, motivated and healthy, and us encouraging them to be fit and well. So, Chair.
Abby, do you want to comment on any of the or assurance issues around this whole question of absenteeism, sickness management, absence, and really the whole approach to the use of agency as opposed to our own?
No, our intention is to get to a place where we eliminate the use of agency, and that is a good place to be. There will be a small number of exceptions that we may have to agree where there are real challenges in terms of recruitment, that they need to be understood and planned, and the kind of rules around those understood. And we need to encourage people who are regular agency workers, because I've come across some of those. And we need to think about what it is we need to do to incentivise and encourage them to come and work for us full time. So with that about flexibility, is that about particular patterns of shift? There are some issues about financial remuneration that we need to look at as part of that. We need to encourage where we can, where we need to flex our staffing up and down to reflect demand, or where we might need to open surge over the winter or respond to particular needs. We need to have a workforce model that enables us to do that, utilising bank and agency without having to go to expensive agency. So that's what we're trying to achieve, and just work our way through that so that we are sustainable moving forward. So it's not a blanket ban, and if you look at the figures, we are still agreeing large numbers of shifts covered by agency staff. It is improving. It's part of a continued improvement. But as colleagues will be aware, and Marie touched on, I think, when we presented the annual plan, IMTP, one of the enabling actions is about a specific target for organisations to reduce further their bank and agency based on their baseline. So again, what we need to do is make sure that goes in at service level and service line, so we understand what that means in every area. So we do have good control process. We need to continue to improve and learn what's working, and make sure we've kind of got a system of, I'll call them rules, but I suppose it's recognition about where we might have exceptions that we want to recognise. So things like maternity, things like critical care, mental health. It's interesting, and it came up, Rena, as a mental health conversation, because we're working very closely, and actually they're making really good success and really good progress in terms of recruiting agency onto bank, recruiting healthcare support workers. So actually they're making good progress. It was part of a wider conversation in recovery and sustainability, and we did a bit of a deep dive on this yesterday about staff available to work. So we do need to look at that, because in some areas, on a day-by-day basis, a significant proportion of staff are not available to work. So we need to look at our rostering. We need to look at things like our special leave. Of course, if you're off on maternity leave, you're on maternity leave. What are our how consistent are we in applying the policy around replacing for maternity, all those kind of things. So there are many lines on this, Jan, that we need to go at in terms of workforce. But I'm clear that eliminating agency is a good thing to do for our organisation in terms of quality and safety and sustainability of our services. Recognising, as I said before, there'll be some exceptions and rules around those exceptions in particular circumstances. Thank you, Jan.
Thank you. So Rena, you're comfortable with Abby's sort of summary there of the actions the executive's going to put in place? And
Yeah.
of course, wide ranging.
and a committee.
Yeah, and it's very encouraging that they're actually managing to recruit, because I think that was the feeling that we picked up, was that there were people that had been working there for some time and now were not allowed to. So hopefully they're being recruited into substantive posts.
Thank you. And that's obviously always better for patient care. Thank you. So we move on to item 6 then, and Nuria, update report from audit, please.
I'll take the report as read. I'll want to alert you to a couple of points contained in the report. The report covers a period when the number of overdue internal audit recommendation had spiraled, and I'm pleased to report that we've seen approximately 10% reduction in relation to to address internal audit recommendations. The minutes highlight the 2 limited assurance reports we received at the previous audit committee, so the Speak Up and the Mortuary Services, and it was interesting to note the Workforce and OD committee had assurance in relation to Speak Up. This was a limited assurance that contained important findings in relation to raising concerns and monitoring and reviewing those concerns, with matters arising being in the operational domain. So I think there's still some work to do, but it's pleasing to see that there was progress in that agenda. We have seen, on the other hand, an increase in Audit Wales overdue recommendations, and we've asked for updates on that and progress to be made in relation to Audit Wales recommendations. And at the latest audit committee, we received 2 limited assurance reports in relation to quality assurance and asset management. Again, really important areas for us in relation to quality and safety. I need to, on the record, advise the board that the total losses and special payments is contained in the report from August 24 and 30th November 2024. As per our financial instructions, I also need to assure the board that we have received the Health Board single tender access and quotations, and that no consultancy services have been approved in this period in line with our direction. I would like, though, to reinforce the need for all services to follow procurement rules and seek advice where they are uncertain. It's really important that we do so. And I can also provide assurance to the board that the committees discussed this self-assessment, that this reflected the widespread views of the committees fulfilling its role and satisfaction with the way the committees operate. On a different note, I would like to also let you know that we did review the structured assessment that is in front of us and the annual plan from Audit Wales. We did make a number of comments in relation to our management response to make sure they were smart and tightened and that we could keep adequate accountability as a committee. I won't steal Sarah's thunder because she's with us today, so I'll let her talk to us about that. But in terms of what we would like support with at this stage from board, again, help with reducing Audit Wales recommendations in similar line with what we did with internal audit. We also would like to reinforce the need for the management responses in relation to audit recommendations to be smart and tight so that we can keep accountability. And the need for us, as I mentioned earlier, for all services to follow procurement rules and seek advice if they are uncertain. I think that covers everything.
Thank you. So I think there are a number of points there for the executive office around responding to Audit Wales recommendations, procurement rules, etc.
Yeah, thank you. And just to assure that we have discussed that in terms of how we tighten up on that in terms of making sure that we are timely in terms of closing down actions and outstanding actions, and making sure we work very closely with Audit Wales and internal audit about the programme of work, and being responsive when those plans come through. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And again, very rigorous oversight at audit committee level and your leadership. So, Anne-Louise, we'll come then to the Mental Health Legislation Committee update, please.
Thank you. We've already discussed the best interest assessor, which is the alert that we had. Other than that, to advise committee that right care, right place, this change to police's response to people with mental health or potentially have mental health problems in public, that there has been no change to the Mental Health Act with regards to the police requirement to transfer people to a place of safety if there is a problem. I mean, that may be something that they are looking to alter, but it hasn't been changed as yet. And so I suspect that they will try to move around that in some instances, but where there is a safety risk to either public or the person, they still are obliged to use their transport to transport patients to hospital.
It's a really important point. No change to the legislation.
Yeah, it happens.
So at executive level, who's picking up the discussions? Marie, would that be you in terms of the discussions with police?
Yeah.
So that point is an important one, actually. We can follow that through. Thank you. Paul?
Just to add, we've had quite robust discussions with police representatives at Safeguarding Regional Board. And it's a pity that Andrew's gone at this point, because he was quite instrumental in some of the challenges to the police around where we're entering into level 3 and 4 now as part of the discussions. And the police were open in their description to know that they still have responsibilities in this area. They were looking to discharge the responsibilities. So there was an acceptance that the legislation is as it is, and they would work within that, but they were very keen to articulate what the boundaries of their response would be within that level.
That'd be really helpful. Yes, thank you. And we follow that through. Thanks for raising that, Anne-Louise. And again, thanks to you leading committee in this work. So Hazel, we turn now then to 6.5 and a number of corporate governance and other governance matters.
So the report sets out matters considered in committee. In the plenary meeting, the Welsh Health Circle has received business and received register. The report also submits an appendix setting out the proposed changes to the membership for 25-26. And then there's a review of terms of reference in relation to the Population Health Committee, Digital Data Research and Innovation Committee and Charitable Funds Committee for approval. In particular, the Population Health Committee was Population Health and Partnerships. Following a workshop, the decision was made, or proposal were, that the partnership actually comes out and is reported to the board as part of the Director of Planning and Partnerships report to each public board. But also Audit Committee are asked to take on a role around scrutiny and challenge in terms of the governance arrangements we have with our partnerships within the organisation, and Audit Committee agreed to do that in its March meeting. An important appendix to the document is the protocol for board engagement visits, which we're hoping to put a formalised approach around this now, starting proposing that we visit mental health and LD in readiness for board development. And how we're proposing we run this is that we'll have 9 small groups of 3 board members, so that when we're out in areas, they would all go to different areas the month that we meet in public board. So you cover the service groups, but then the months that we meet for board development, all the groups would go to the area of topic. It could be a pathway, it could be a service group that we would focus on in the board development. But the 9 groups would go to different areas along the pathway or different areas in the service group. So everybody brings together their knowledge and inform that board development discussion as well. Propose that we revisit that after the first quarter and evaluate and then evolve it as we go along, and then it becomes a rolling programme. Another important thing to mention is that we, once we've done our forms and highlight anything, it goes into the quality and safety improvement team, because they are collating visits from a corporate level, but also service group quality reviews as well. So it will go into a centralised system to look at themes and issues that are being picked up as well.
Thank you, Hazel. There's a lot of ground covered there, and a lot of painstaking work to follow on these different components together. So we've got a number of things that we receive as part of normal business. And then we've got the revised committee membership for 25-26, and we hope that we're working on the latest iteration. We were still working on it yesterday, but we will definitely send the final one out before the end of the week. And hopefully we've spoken with everybody now in terms of committee changes, and appreciate everybody's preparedness to take on chair, vice chair and membership roles. And I would just have to say, listening to and watching the way in which the committees are developing and the reports of the committees to the board. I know I said it earlier, it's a very strange thing to say, but it's a deep joy to me as the chair, because I think from governance, in terms of governance, it's a real elevation of the whole approach to governance. So Jonathan Barrier and Kiki, thank you all very much. So we'll sort out the committee membership. Hopefully people will support that. And then we've got approval for different terms of reference for the different committees. But remember, these are dynamic, and committees are, are enabled to tweak the terms of reference as the year develops to see if there's anything you really want to do. And then we are bringing back the board engagement protocol, and there will be advice out on how we're going to structure that, how we're going to feed back, and then how we're going to collate the overall learning. But I hope it'll be a far more structured approach. That's okay. Everybody content? Thank you very much. So Sarah, you've been sitting there very patiently.
Thank you, Chair.
Now turn to you at 6.6 for the structured assessment and several annual reports. So warm welcome, croeso mawr and drosodd i chi. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll start with the structured assessment report. I will assume members have read the report, but if I can just pull out a few key things from it. So this is our annual review of corporate arrangements with a focus on planning, financial management, assurance and board transparency and cohesion. So overall, the Health Board is improving governance, but we did identify the need to strengthen ownership and accountability of audit recommendations. And I know Nuria has already picked up some issues in that area, and aspects of performance reporting as well could be strengthened. There's been good progress to stabilise the board, and we highlighted the need for a stronger focus on the wellbeing of future generations reporting as well in our report. It's been covered. The Health Board's financial position continues to be challenging, and arrangements for holding to account for financial delivery within service groups continues to be of a concern. We did reorganise the report this year with a focus on planning, and we just wanted to kind of reiterate that future focus needs to be on developing that long-term strategy aligned to the long-term vision of the organisation, which really identifies those sustainable service solutions over the medium to longer term, with an emphasis on population health and prevention. We made 7 recommendations in our report, and these were accepted, and we have a management response to these. I know Nuria's comments in relation to that, and I think we've made an agreement that we're going to update the information in the audit tracker to provide a bit more context on some of the actions that are going to be taken against those. Appendix 2 in the report provides an update on the implementation of the previous structured assessment reports. I'm happy to take any questions on the content of the report.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you very much. And thank you for the constructive way you set about the whole process. I'll just ask anything, have any comments or questions. Nuria, anything you wanted to add?
I would just like to thank Sarah and the executive team for what I think is a really good report, acknowledging the challenges that we have, but also the progress that we've made in some areas.
Thank you. Pretty happy to endorse that. Thank you very much. So on to your next report then, Sarah.
Thank you, Chair. So the annual audit report, that summarises the findings from our work at the Health Board during 2024, which includes our audit of accounts, as well as our audit of arrangements for securing efficiency, effectiveness and economy in the use of resources. So each of these reports contained within this summary have been subject to the Health Board's clearance processes to ensure factual accuracy, and completed management responses have been completed where we've made recommendations, and they have been considered by the audit committee during the year. The audit of accounts work is included on page 7 and 8. They highlight the accounts were properly prepared and materially accurate with no material weaknesses in internal controls. We issued an unqualified opinion on the 2023-24 accounts. However, we did bring some issues to the attention of officers and the audit committee. Our audit work with regard to efficiency, effectiveness and economy is summarised on pages 9 to 16 and includes the review of cost savings, review of operational governance, a follow-up review of follow-up outpatients and our annual structured assessment report as well. We currently have 2 pieces of performance audit work in clearance with the Health Board. That's our work on urgent and emergency care. We've got 2 reports there, one with a focus around the RPB and one with a focus around discharge planning. And we also have the planned care report, which we have in clearance at the minute. Work is underway in relation to our digital services, and that will be completed during Q1 of 25-26. I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank for the support of the executive and the teams in relation to doing this work. It's very much appreciated, and I do value our ongoing relationship and the mutual support as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. And I'm sure that will be very much appreciated, and we very much welcome the constructive report approach that you take to the whole audit agenda. Thank you very much. So your final report then?
Finally, Chair, I have the audit plan for 2025. So this is a risk-based plan and aligns to the required code of conduct that we have. The plan sets out our programme of work across both the financial and the performance domains. From my performance perspective, you can see the features of the plan are structured assessment. We're also doing a deep dive into management of estates. We're also going to be doing a cancer services review. Following on from the work that we've done at a national level, we're going to be doing a thematic review in each of the health boards looking at cancer services. And in terms of the local work, we're going to be doing a quality governance follow-up in relation to the work that we did in 2022. The plan outlines the fee and we publish our fee scales in January of 2025 following approval by the Senedd Committee. Happy to take any questions on the content of the plan.
Thank you, Sarah. And we did have a deep dive on cancer services earlier.
Yeah, it was really useful. Thank you, Chair. Yeah.
We must be psychic.
Yeah, I was just going to say as well, I will bring the All Wales report to the next audit committee with the management response, and I will have a member of the team that delivered that work actually presenting that, so that will give members an opportunity to ask some detailed questions on the report.
Thank you very much. Nuria, Darren, anything you want to comment on in respect to the plan? Are you okay? Comfortable? Okay. Well, thank you very much again, Sarah Jockenbauer Eto. It's lovely to see you. And we look forward to working with you in the same spirit of cooperation in the coming year.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
So then we move then to 6.7 and the number of things to note, Hazel.
Yeah, so the board advisory group reports are there to receive. Just wanted to say that 2 of the advisory groups are going through a reset at the moment. So we're hoping that in the May board meetings and thereon, we'll be able to have the chairs of the advisory groups coming and presenting their updates and taking part in the board discussions going forward. So that's all I wanted to cover.
Thank you very much. And Pat, we know you've sat there very patiently throughout the day. We haven't been able to call on you because we haven't had the letter back from the Cabinet Secretary confirming your appointment, but you know you're very welcome. And we just hope that we'll have it back in time for the next one. Thank you. Hazel,
Regional Joint Committee has been established. First meetings in January, next meeting is on the 7th of May, and the dates have been set for the year going forward. This is there for assurance purposes as part of our joint committee with Howard and with the regular committee report to the board, same as our other committees going forward.
Okay, and we're looking to set up another board in October again this year with the Cabinet Secretary coming to speak to us. Thank you. So 6.9, the minutes of the board meetings held on the 30th of January. Sorry, I'm having a slight confusion with my iPad. So yes, so 30th of January. So we've got meeting in the session. Yeah, and then are they correct record? So that's okay, and then the action log.
Yeah, there are a number of action logs. There's an update against each of them. I'm proposing to go through each of them in turn, but happy to take any questions on any of the updates.
Any questions or points on the action log? Thank you. And then 7.1, which is to receive my report and the activities I've taken since our last meeting. We'll see that. I had no other business notified, so therefore I'm going to close the meeting and then we can review the effectiveness of what has been an absolute marathon. And don't ask me how, we're 2 minutes ahead. All right.